Welcome, episode 99 from the Shed End. As always, Theo, how you doing?
Not bad, not bad. I feel like now that the weather's all gloomy and grey again in London, it feels like the summer's officially over, and it's been a very busy summer travelling. And I think we're both guilty of not maybe committing enough time to recording. So I think now that we're 5 games into the season, it's definitely going to be more of a routine. Friday afternoons, Thursday afternoons, recording some podcasts. So looking forward to that. On a more personal note, I was in Berlin last weekend. I got to see Hertha Berlin play at the Olympiastadion, which was very special. Very good atmosphere, especially for Bundesliga 2. And you get to drink a beer while watching the footy, which I think is fantastic. I actually still got my little Hertha Berlin beer cup here.
Which you get to keep it?
You get to keep it, yeah. You get, I think, €2 back if you return it, but it was my souvenir game. But yeah, definitely was definitely an experience, and I posted a few videos on the Shed End story, so definitely check those out. But how are you doing this Friday afternoon?
Yeah, I'm good. Not bad. Yeah, like you feel like we have been neglecting. We have in the channel. So again, we appreciate everyone who's still tuned in, checking out the videos, and subscribing to the channel or listening on the audio version of the podcast. We appreciate everyone who's doing that. But yeah, we're definitely getting back into the routine. And yeah, obviously, football wise, things haven't been amazing on the pitch, which we'll talk about. But apart from that, I'm good. I'm looking forward to Sunday's game. Should be a good game. Hopefully some changes. Obviously, as we're recording, Maurizio Pochettino is having his press conference now, so I'm sure there'll be a couple of things that we'll pick out from today's press conference and talk about throughout the episode. So, but I mean, let's just start with obviously the obvious place I think to start is obviously the performances haven't been the best since the kickoff of the season. We had the international break, which, as you said, we've both sort of been traveling here, there, and everywhere in between that, but they just haven't been. Obviously, the international break ends. You kind of think fresh, clean slate. This is now the time to focus. We've got a very good run of games. Obviously, the Forest game wasn't the best for us, but to go into a game against Bournemouth, where you kind of expect us to get something from it, regardless of the history, the vitality. But it just, I mean, what was your thoughts? I mean, it didn't seem like a game that we should have lost, but it feels like a loss, even though it was a draw.
Yeah, I mean, I think after last season, I know that we've had some kind of confidence boosters in Maurizio Pochettino coming in the summer, maybe some new signings that could potentially provide the goals. Raheem Sterling's form, who's really hit a purple patch recently. But I still think compared to last season, I just go into these games not expecting a guaranteed 3 points. And I think that's what's happened, kind of the Graham Potter effect, the kind of Todd Bowley effect, and kind of the post-Abramovich effect that we've that's taken place at Chelsea Football Club as of last season. But that being said, Bournemouth away, with the quality of players that we've got in that team, £1 billion worth of money invested in the squad in the last calendar year or so. You've got to win those type of fixtures. So I was expecting a win, and I think as well, like I wasn't able to catch the game unfortunately in Berlin because I was at the Hertha Berlin match, but I caught the highlights. And by the looks of it, we had some chances. Cole Palmer, I think Raheem Sterling hitting the crossbar from a free kick. But if it wasn't for Sanchez, I think once or twice pulling off some big saves, I think that's a guaranteed 3 points for Bournemouth on the day. So I think Bournemouth might have come out of that game thinking they could have won it more than Chelsea could have won it. So is it more, 2 points dropped, or is it more 1 point gained? In the grand scheme of things, it might look like it was 1 point gained, but on the long run and all the money you invested in the squad and the expectations that Chelsea have at the moment, which I know you've spoken about at length on some separate episodes, that we need to kind of lower our expectations and we're not a top club anymore, which I agree with. Then maybe it's 2 points dropped. But yeah, it was a really poor performance, really poor, especially considering that was, I think, the one fixture that we'd won last season in our last kind of 2 or 3 months of football. I think the one game that Frank Lampard won. So yeah, really poor performance and a very disappointing Sunday afternoon.
Yeah, it was. I mean, it was tough to take. I think I think we do have to sort of lower the expectation and understand where we are as a club. And I think some of the fans are struggling with that. They haven't grasped that we aren't the club that we have been. And I watched a couple of videos last night as well, and a couple of good points were made in terms of if you're still thinking to go to games, abuse players and go there and expect to win every single game, then clearly this part of supporting Chelsea clearly isn't for you, because this is the part where you just have to stick with the club through thick and thin, and regardless of who's playing, who's captain the team, who's the manager at the moment, you just have to ride it out and just understand that this is going to be a process of transition, which every club has. Every club has this moment where we just don't, you don't go into games like you just said. You don't go into the Bournemouth game now thinking you're going to win. It isn't that easy anymore. You look at Stamford Bridge, that used to be a fortress. Clubs used to come to Stamford Bridge and walk away with 0 points. Whereas now, you look at the game on Sunday, which we'll talk about later. There's a chance, even though, Villa played in Europe last night, there's a chance that they could still go on and win that game on Sunday. So no game's an easy game in the Premier League, regardless of who you are. But just going back to that Bournemouth game, I was impressed with Conor Gallagher. I thought, he's, again, someone that was definitely on his way out the door this summer window, last transfer window as well. I think Everton were interested in him at one point as well. So he's come in, he captained the side on Sunday, just gone. He looks like a player that we kind of need to have in the squad, especially for Sunday. He looks like he's someone that's got a new lease of life. He looks like he's enjoying his football a bit more. But do you think we need to keep Conor Gallagher in that team? The likes of maybe Thiago Silva, who we'll talk about shortly, but Conor Gallagher seems to be someone that we have to keep in that team based on the injuries as well that we've got.
Yeah, definitely. I think in our last 5 Premier League games, so our 5 fixtures this season in the Prem, I think he's either started or come off the bench in every single one of them. So it goes to show that he's in Pochettino's plans. The manager backs him. He was captain the side against AFC Wimbledon in the League Cup and against Bournemouth last weekend, which I find even stranger, the fact that he was almost out the door in January to Everton. I think it was Tottenham or Newcastle who wanted him in the summer. So it almost feels very weird that either it's the board that's trying to push him out to maybe raise money, but Pochettino wants to keep him, and maybe Pochettino is making a point at the moment, saying he's part of my plans. He's my captain as well. I want to keep him. But in terms of Conor Gallagher, credit to him. He's been a great kind of professional. Every game he's played in this season, he's looked good. I think he's a fighter. He's a tough tackler as well. He regains the ball very quickly as well. And I think he's definitely improved from his game last season. Last season, he kind of felt like a bit of a bull in a china shop. He was kind of throwing himself into rash kind of challenges and tackles. Got sent off with 2 yellow cards early on in the season against Leicester, I believe. And then from there, it was kind of fighting to get back into the squad and kind of regain Tuchel and then Potter's kind of confidence. But now I think he's looking like a real kind of we talk about lack of leaders in the team, but he's maybe one of the very few, despite his age, that looks like he knows what it means to represent Chelsea. The Socials posted quite a nice tribute video to him yesterday, kind of as he got the captain's armband at the weekend and showing kind of his progress and his development from the youth team up to the level he is at now. And I think, he knows what it takes as well to get to the top level. Alone at Charlton, then it was Swansea in the same season. Then it was West Brom, and then it was Crystal Palace. So he's done kind of all the levels of English football in a way. And now he's a first team footballer for Chelsea Football Club. And again, another one that I still feel is scapegoated a lot by Chelsea fans. It's a player that sometimes they just refuse to admit that he's had a good game. They kind of rather give all the credit to Enzo, to Thiago Silva, to another player. But when Gallagher puts in a good shift, you've got to say he puts in a very, very good performance. Especially now we're seeing that Caicedo is kind of in and out of the team with injuries. We've got to kind of appreciate Gallagher's versatility. He can play as a CM and more defensive midfielder at times, which is where Pochettino seems to favour him, and also more higher up the pitch in kind of a more advanced role. So a fantastic player to have, and we can maybe add a bit more goals to his game or a bit more creativity. That'll be fantastic.
Yeah, I do think he's a player that is definitely criticised for the wrong reasons. And that goes back to my point around the fans just going to games just to abuse players. There's a toxicity around the fan base at the moment, especially at some of the games. But I just think with Conor Gallagher, it's a difficult one for me because I don't think he's the level of play that we need in terms of, when we eventually are competing again for the Premier League or the Champions League. I don't know. It might be the trajectory that he could go on to make him be one of the best in England or one of the best English midfielders, but I just don't see it at the moment. Is he a very good player and he works runs 99%, got a brilliant engine on him? 100%. He does exactly what we need him to do. And I think he's the level that we are right now. He's probably one of our better players that we currently have in the squad based on form anyway, at least. Obviously Pochettino prior to the Bournemouth game went back to a flat back four, albeit with, he made some of the changes that I think a lot of the Chelsea fans had addressed or had concerns around, with Chilwell playing as a left winger and Levi Colwill playing as a left back, essentially. He then changed that against Bournemouth on Sunday. He put Mudryk as the winger, then kept Levi Colwill as the left back when you've got Ian Maatson and you've also got Ben Chilwell on your bench. I just don't get that. And I think that's a worry for me, because I know the Matson thing's very sort of, it's a tricky situation, because I don't think that he's reluctant to sign a deal. I think the club want him to sign a deal. He's turned down two offers already. But you've still got Ben Chilwell, who we know is a natural, he can play that role naturally. And I think it kind of takes away the qualities of Levi Colwill as a left back when you haven't got him at centre back. A lot of scrutiny has come from Thiago Silva. And Thiago Silva is going to be one of the best central defenders we've probably ever got to witness at that age, still at the quality that he is in the Premier League ever since 1992. That's just a given. If people want to say that I'm wrong for that, then let me know. But is it now, though, a time where, and I think this is going to happen this season, that we see that switch over from Thiago Silva the player to Thiago Silva the coach? But is this now a time where we just phase him out, take him out that limelight, take him out, because he seems like he's another one that's heavily criticised? And maybe some of the Chelsea fans do need to see that without Thiago Silva, you've got Zerzzi, who I'm not 100% confident with, and Levi Colwill playing his first, say, top flight in terms of, I know he played well at Brighton, but in terms of a bigger club like Chelsea, this is his first proper test as a centre back. The scrutiny is going to be on him a lot more. So should we just take Thiago Silva out for some people to realise that maybe we actually do need him in the squad until the Wesley Fofana's, Badia Shield, who's back in full-time training now with the squad, until they're back up to full fitness? Do we still need to keep Thiago Silva in the team for Aston Villa?
Firstly, happy birthday, Thiago Silva. He's 39 today.
Yep.
I've just realised. Yep. 39 years young. But no, I think the phasing out of Thiago Silva kind of happened this summer. The fact he wasn't given the captain's armband kind of was an indication that he might be having limited playing time, a lot less playing time than he enjoyed under Thomas Tuchel and Graham Potter last season. And instead, it seems like we're slowly moving towards these kind of like a crop of players that are below the age of 25 on these huge contracts in terms of length. And that includes the Disasi, Badiashile. But I also feel like we're kind of forced to play the centre-backs we've seen so far in the past couple of games this season, given the injuries. You look at Trevor Chalobah, hasn't kicked a ball since pre-season. Same with Benoit Badiashile, same with Wesley Fofana. You could argue maybe two of the three of those players are kind of guaranteed starters, usually in this Chelsea starting 11. So instead, we've been forced to play kind of this hybrid defence of whatever it may be, a back three of Disasi, Levi Colwill and Silva. Or at the weekend, it was Silva and Disasi with Colwill at left back. But again, I just feel like the injuries have maybe forced Pochettino to not have a guaranteed starting 11 or a favoured starting 11 he wants to go with every game that we play. And that's been kind of a recurring theme that we've had in the last couple of seasons because of the injuries. But I still think Thiago Silva is going to be so crucial to this season. Whether that means we go far into the cup competitions, we challenge for top 4, top 6. I still think we're going to need Thiago Silva around that squad, whether that be on the pitch, in the dugout, in the dressing room. He's going to be so important. But like I said, I think the fact he hasn't been given the captain's armband, Gallagher was given the captain's armband ahead of him on Sunday, is probably an indication that this will be his last season and he will be gradually phased out of that starting 11 potentially.
Yeah, I mean, it's an interesting one, and I agree with you. I think we're at that point now, for me personally, with Thiago Silva, that he definitely has a voice in the dressing room, definitely has a voice. I know I read something this morning to say that, he's been very vocal. I think it was Simon Phillips reported it, to say that, he's been heavily vocal in the dressing room about the levels of expectation from some of the players and the level of quality that we should be playing at. So he's definitely a winner. I think there's no question about that. I don't think anyone can question how much of a winner he is, or how much of the experience that he's going to be able to bring to the squad. It's a youthful squad as well, very young squad. But I think even now, I look at Sunday's game, I look at Diaby, Leon Bailey, Ollie Watkins. I just look at those kind of players, and I think, like you just said, 39 years young is it's to me personally, I just don't think we should be having a 39-year-old defender in it. We shouldn't be relying on him, and it's unfortunate that we are where we are. That's just how the cookie's crumbled. But I just think at some point we need to trust Levi Colwill to be able to do that job at centre back, not as a left back, but as a centre back. Put Ben Chilwell as left back, and as you said, Zerzzi can do that now. He's there, he can do it. But I do have some hesitance about him and how he'll play as a double centre back with Colwill. But we have to see. I think this will obviously be his last season for Thiago Silva. and I hope he stays on as a as a coach. I think he'd be so influential to some of those younger centre backs as well, more so next season. But
I think his kids are in the Chelsea academy at the moment as well.
Oh,
aren't they?
right, okay, right.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I mean, I like to say that means something, but Hazard's within Real Madrid and he still decided to leave and move on. But it's a good, and he looks. I mean, Thiago Silva looks like he loves London. He looks like he enjoys himself here. He loves the fact that he's connected to the club so much, and it's reciprocated in terms of what the fans give him back as well. So, I think let's hope it carries on and that continues. But before we move on, I want to talk about Nicholas Jackson, who, again, someone who is splitting the fan base completely 50-50 in terms of his performances, in terms of the chances that he's been given, in terms of what's been created for him. Should he be doing better? It's a strange one because I feel like he's, I've watched now obviously every game that he's played in the Premier League so far. He's got to do better. There's no question about that. But there's two things for me. If we take him out of the team, who's replacing him? Because we don't have anyone at the moment currently. And also as well, you've got to remember, this is what his sixth game coming up in the Premier League. So we're in the sixth game in the Premier League, I think. And we've got to give him the time. I think we've got to give him the time. We've got to understand that Christopher Nkunku was a massive factor into how he was going to play. We've seen that in pre-season. But do you feel that Nicholas Jackson is getting unfair criticism in terms of the performances? I mean, they have been poor. We have to remember the miss that he had against Forest, the shot that just kind of didn't even give the goalkeeper at Bournemouth anything to think about. But is he just got to stay calm, relaxed, understand that he's still 22, he's in a big league now? Or do we need to use him as a winger, which is what some of the Chelsea fans are suggesting as well?
Yeah, I mean, I like I said in the summer, this guy's still very, very raw. I think the only reason he kind of was brought into the Villarreal side was because of Gerard Moreno's injury, I think come January time, or kind of early in the season. And also, like you just raised, which is a great point, he hasn't really been challenged, and we don't really have another option at the moment. We know that Armando Broja is just kind of getting back into the flow of things, and he's re-entered a first-team training at Cobham. So I think it's going to be a matter of weeks. But until he regains his full match fitness, that could be a couple months potentially. But I do expect him to see him in matchday squads come October time. And I think once we get Broja back in the matchday squads, that means healthy competition for Jackson. And I really hope slowly he starts to kind of pick up the pace. And Nkunku, another one who I think could have played as a striker, could have contributed with goals, could have had that perfect link-up play like we saw in pre-season with Jackson. Because right now I do agree that he's hit Rosette a few times, and he had a really poor shot against Bournemouth. He hasn't really looked as effective as he could be. But I do think he's making the right type of moves, and at times, again, you could have said the same about Lukaku, you could have said the same about Havertz, about Morata, but like all these strikers have looked isolated and they end up drifting on the wing. And I think Jackson's done that a few times. So I just feel like once he gets that kind of support, which will be Nkunku, which could have been João Felix, I think he'll really blossom. But yeah, I still think we need to trust this guy. He's very raw. He's still very young. He wasn't a full package when we signed him from Villarreal, and I think we knew that. But I also feel kind of bad for him, and how a lot of fans are kind of pointing the finger to him that we're expecting him to score 20 goals. He's not going to score 20 goals for us this season. I think he might be that player that maybe contributes to maybe 9 or 10 goals. But I think to be able to score those goals, he's going to need that support, like I said. That being said, he's our kind of goal scorer at the moment. So we're going to have to get him to kind of contribute to goals, assists, or something on the pitch. And in the first 5-6 games, we just haven't seen that yet. I think he looked very lively in the first game against Liverpool at home. I think that got Chelsea fans very excited. He looked very lively in pre-season. Almost a goal in every single one of his games that he played, I believe, other than maybe the Dortmund or the Fulham one. So yeah, I think definitely a player that we need to trust, we need to back, but we also need to give him a bit of a break and take him out of the limelight from time to time. And I really hope that when Broja's fit in the next couple of weeks, months, that'll be an opportunity for him to kind of have that healthy competition. You never know, maybe even play alongside Broja as two strikers. I don't think that's something that Chelsea have experimented enough, but when we did it with Lukaku and Havertz, even though I know that Havertz isn't really a natural number 9, I think it was that game at the Emirates and the start of the season 2 years ago where it just looked like it was just perfect. The two of them were passing the ball amazingly, and they were using the wing backs fantastically. So yeah, that's also an opportunity. But yeah, a player that I think I want to see a bit more of, especially easy run of, I want to say easy, but those games against Bournemouth, Forest, he got his goal against Luton, but those are the type of games where you'd expect a player like him to be able to score in, and he hasn't.
I think you just jogged my memory back when I was recording early this week. But I think my worry for whole striker situation now is obviously these games that we're talking about now. You just said there's a nice run of fixtures up until I think the 21st of October when we start into that busy period. I think it's Arsenal first, and then we have like City, Brighton. We've got up until October, December. The picture list is looking a bit crazy for a team that's only got one game a week. But my worry with Nicholas Jackson, I agree with you. I think he's someone that we need to give time to, but I don't think time's on his side at the moment. And the reason I say that is because come October, come Christmas, we're going to be talking about the squad being 14th, 15th. I look at how we score goals. Where do we get our goals from? You bring in a striker. Yes, he needs time, 100%. He needs to be given the time to be able to adapt and adjust and understand how Pochettino wants him to play. But it's weird one with Jackson because he does some of the most basic things correct, but then some of the basic things he does so badly as well. So I don't know. I can't really praise him and criticize him at the same time. It's a weird one. I think his runs off the ball are brilliant. I think the fact that he can hold the ball up and take on defenders and run past defenders, he can do everything that a striker should do. But when it gets to the clinical part of scoring or shooting, and it's not just him, I don't want to just single him out because Sterling does it a lot. It's like we're afraid to shoot. It's like we've been told don't shoot or you're going to be docked like 20 grand out your wages. It's such a weird thing that I'm seeing a lot from the Chelsea players. It's pass sideways, lose the ball, or back to the the midfield and back to the central defenders and then back to the goalkeeper and then back. We don't shoot. So I think come December, if we're still having this conversation, which we will be, because Broja, I think will take, I think he's back in training. I think Pochettino's just said, he's very close to returning back to the squad in his press conference this afternoon. But he's been out for so long. I mean, this is going to be this. I think we're not us, but I think Chelsea fans are putting a lot of pressure on Jackson first of all, but also Broja when he comes back, also in Nkunku when he comes back. Remember, Nkunku's never kicked a football in the Premier League yet, so I think there's a lot of expectations from all three of them. And obviously, even if Ivan Toney, which is another thing that's been mentioned again, after Thomas Frank's comments on Monday Night Football around Ivan Toney potentially being sold for 60 million in the winter window. But even that's not a guarantee because we've seen strikers come to Chelsea who've been scoring for fun before they join Chelsea. They join Chelsea and the curse hits them. They just don't score goals, which is worrying. I just don't see where the goals are coming from this season. We could bring in 4 Ivan Tonys. We could bring in, Vlahovic from Juve. We could bring in Lukaku. Says sorry, I'm gonna score every single game, and I'm gonna try and score every single game. I don't see where the goals are gonna come from for Chelsea, which is a worry. And why I've been saying from now, we need to realistically think about honestly what are the expectations for this season. Me personally, it's not to finish 12th. I'll be honest. If we finish 11th or 10th, progress. But I do worry that come January, we're still going to be having this conversation about Nicholas Jackson. We're still going to be saying, well, Broja needs a bit more time. He's just come back from an injury. We might sign Ivan Toney, but he might not be the answer. We might bring back, and Nkunku might be back by then, and he might not be the answer. So it's worrying times as a Chelsea fan. I think is what I'm trying to summarize and say.
Yeah, it is. I think you summed it up in one of your previous kind of like videos where you mentioned he's on borrowed time, and I raised an eyebrow, and then I kind of thought about it. October's just around the corner. We're kind of, December's not too far away, and the next thing you know, it's January. And if he continues not performing, Todd Bowley will open up his wallet, look at an Ivan Toney, look at a Dusan Vlahovic as options. And I know it was linked towards, I think, the deadline day in the summer. Fabrizio said that Chelsea are going to go all out for an offensive player, and I think everybody thought it was going to be a striker. He's going to be a striker. And no, it was Cole Palmer, and I think Cole Palmer's a fantastic footballer, but I think we spent all that money on him just based on his Super Cup final performance and his Community Shield final performance in a way, where he scored a goal in each one of those games, and it was almost like this guy can score goals, we're going to get him. But realistically, did he ever even get a single game last season? I think the only game I remember him starting, or maybe other than the League Cup games, was the game against Chelsea when they lifted the cup, and that was almost like their Serenation game. So yeah, I do think he's a good player, but it felt like we kind of panicked and bought Cole Palmer because we saw he could score goals in 2 games. But realistically, we should have gone out for an experienced number 9. That could have been a Vlahovic, who I'm not sure you've seen, but he's started the season really strongly.
Yeah.
But maybe it's also a question of we're going to stay patient and go out all out for Ivan Toney in January. And Thomas Franks recently opened up and said that Brentford are a selling club, and that's what they've done in the past. You look at Ollie Watkins, you look at Ben Rama, you look at Neil Mapai, all those players who have contributed and scored goals for Brentford. They eventually end up selling them, and somehow a miracle of their kind of recruitment, they end up replacing them with a player that's just at a level and the same someone else. So I think that's going to be what's going to happen. I think Jackson's going to continue to underperform, and that's going to lead to us going all out for Ivan Toney in January.
I know I've been a big advocate of that, on this, but I think this season, I've just realized we are not the club we think we are.
No.
And I think the penny dropped, after the Forest game before the international break. And I just thought, this season, I thought, right, we should be at least pushing for the Champions League spots. We should be looking at maybe a Europa League spot at best, maybe a good cup run. I think we're a million miles away from it. I really do. I just don't see where the goals are going to come from. I think defensively, we don't look the best. Sorry to be the negative person on here, but I just think we're at a point where we just have to be honest and say, if we put to play Wolves next weekend, I think they'd beat us. And Wolves, Bournemouth were struggling for points just like we are last Sunday, and they actually gave us a really good game. You look at someone like Aston Villa, who, they're in Europe, which is great for them, and obviously they playing on a Thursday won't help them, but even if on Sunday we beat them, I'm not pleased about that, because we should be beating Aston Villa. So I just think we're at a point now where we just have to be honest and say that, we are where we are. The club, you just mentioned then, and I've said it before, Ivan Toney coming in, there's more money. We spent £1 billion. We shouldn't even need to go and get anyone else. The squad should be ready for this season and ready for the next 2 seasons, based on the players that we brought in, the younger players that we've loaned out. We should be set for the next 3 or 4 seasons if the blueprint and the project was done correctly. But we're still talking about going to get another goalkeeper. Aaron's Ramsdale we've been linked with. We still need a striker that we haven't got, and we spent £1 billion. So it just tells me that the club see the club as the franchise, which we've spoken about in terms of, trying to make Stamford Bridge a bit better and build around it and put the statues in that are going to cost £2 million each. And we still don't have a shirt sponsor, so we're trying to get more injection of money for somewhere else. It just seems more less sort of the business, but the actual football and the players are being neglected slightly, in my opinion.
Yeah, completely agree. And I think we sat on this podcast come like maybe May, June time, and we tried to identify the areas of the pitch we needed to strengthen. And I think the main ones were obviously central midfield, given that Kante, Jorginho, Kovacic, all those players had gone. We got Caicedo. Maybe we have strengthened. We've got Enzo's improved. We've got Lavia, who we haven't mentioned yet, but it's also been injured. Then we also said striker, and we said, I think maybe potentially goal. We didn't say goalkeeper at the time because we thought Kepa was going to stay. And maybe we said centre back, but I don't think we strengthened in any of those positions: goalkeeper, centre back, or striker. So it looks like we spent all that money, but realistically, are we going to be having the same performance as last season? I think we might. I think we might be in for another very rough season. So, and is that acceptable after spending all that money? I don't think it is, and that's why I think the pressure could be on Poch after a while.
But in a way, and I hate to say this, but in a way, if we do end up being in the same situation as last season, I'll be glad, because I think it will weed out some of the fans, and I don't mean that in a horrible way, but I think there's some fans that they're just there. They don't support the club. It's a weird one. They don't support the club. They support being, I don't know. They just want to be associated with the club. But when the club's doing bad, you don't see them recording podcasts, or you don't see them at the game. So it might weed out some of the fans, which I'll be glad about. I don't ever want to see my club lose, or I don't want to see my club being a mid-table team. But you have to, like I said, you have to go through the rough and the smooth as a fan base. But I want to talk about Trevor Chalobah, because he's someone that is very. You mentioned him earlier. He's someone that, for me personally, I think, I'm just trying to think, is he injured? I think he's injured at the moment, isn't he?
He's on that injury. He's on that injury list, but you just do start to wonder if that's an injury that's kind of made up, or if you see what I mean, because it's like,
I mean, I agree with you. I don't know how he's injured. I'll just pull the injury list up now, actually, just while we're sort of talking about injuries. But we've got Badia Shil, who we know is out, Armando Broja, Marcus Bettinelli, Trevor Chalobah, Carney Chukwuemeka, Wesley Fofana, Reece James, Christopher Nkunku, and Romeo Lavia all out injured. But with Trevor Chalobah, I just think he's someone that, I mean, obviously he's injured now, but he's still got surely a role to play at the club. I mean, he's someone that has proven every time he's come into the team that he can defend, he can play well. Yes, he had Thiago Silva, a very experienced centre back alongside him, but you just think it's a shame how he's almost been forced out the door by the sound of things. He's been told he really hasn't got a role to play at the club. They tried to force him out to Nottingham Forest. I think the Bayern Munich deal didn't go through on deadline day. Now there's talk he's definitely going in January. Do you think that's the right thing to do? I mean, obviously we're heavily stacked in that department with centre backs, but they're not always going to be, free to play in terms of, they'll pick up injuries. Wesley Fofana might come back as a player that he is as well. So surely you want to retain someone like Trevor Chalobah just for the experience of playing in that first team.
Yeah, I'm still a bit on the fence with Chalobah. I think he's a fantastic footballer. And I think there's that crazy statistic that before, I think it was the game against Brighton where we lost 4-1 at the Amex last season, I think, which was October last year. Every single game he played in for Chelsea before then, or started in, we didn't lose, which is almost like a year and a bit of football. So all that season under Tuchel, sure, we looked a lot more solid defensively. And the first couple of months of last season, we didn't lose with Trevor Chalobah in the team. And obviously there was the whole Graham Potter phase afterwards where we were just giving out points for fun and losing games kind of for fun. So we can't really put the blame on Chalobah there. Like you said, I still think he's got a part to play with all the injuries we have in defence. It's only a matter of time before maybe Disasi or Silva gets injured. You feel with the amount of football that they're going to play in the coming weeks. Versatile as well, plays right back, plays centre back, can play in a back three, which often favours his football, I think, which seems at times what the formation that Tuchel wants to go for. And I always bring this up, but when he was on loan at Lorient, he played it as a CDM at times, which could be an option if Lavia, Caicedo continued to get injured and Poch wants to play Tuchel further up, and Poch wants to play not Tuchel, wants to play Enzo further up the pitch. So yeah, I think a player that might still have a part to play, and I think Pochettino's backed him and said he's still part of my plans. But also, you kind of look at how Tomori left in January, went on loan to Milan, and now he's considered one of the best defenders in Serie A, and it's back in the fold with with Southgate with England. So I think that could be appealing to Chalobah. Kind of maybe a move to Inter Milan to Bayern Munich, who he was linked to in the summer. And when Bayern Munich come knocking and giving how abysmal Chelsea have been, I don't think really someone like Chalobah can say no to that, especially if Tuchel can guarantee him more minutes than he will under Pochettino at Chelsea. So I'm not that optimistic that he'll stay beyond January. But I still want to see him kind of play a part in the next couple weeks, months, if he does recover from that injury, if this injury and this rehabilitation program is actually a legit thing, because I'm having doubts about this. We haven't seen him once in any of the kind of images around Cobham. We haven't seen him once, I think, since the preseason game against Borussia Dortmund. So yeah, a lot of question marks about his kind of injury status and kind of his future at the club as well.
Yeah, and to add to that as well, I think there was a tweet that was put out earlier this week around his personal instructor who started to criticize the level of injuries at Chelsea, and it didn't obviously go down well. He must have got back to the club, and those things won't help. Whether that's Chalobah talking to the person on a personal, private conversation that's now leaked onto social media, it's not going to help his case in terms of trying to get back into the squad. If I'm honest, I don't think we'll see him. I think he's done. I think he probably wants to be at Chelsea, but the way things are, you look at the Mason Mount situation, you look at the way that things are kind of happening. It's almost if you don't agree with what's happening at the club, then you're just forced out. You're just isolated out of the team, which is unfortunate. It's almost if you're not willing to do this, then you're not playing. And I think Ian Maatsen potentially could go down the same route if he's not careful, but we'll have to see. But I just wanted to talk about, obviously, Aston Villa on Sunday, which is a game. Tough game. It's a very tough game. It's a very tough game. It's it's a game that we've got you know your stats, but we've relatively got a good record, I think, against Villa at Stamford Bridge. I know Villa Park's slightly different, but I'm pretty sure at Stamford Bridge
Yeah,
not
I
too
think
shabby.
our home record against Villa, we lost 2-0 last season, the 1st of April, I think it was. We lost 2-0, McGinn and Watkins in what was a terrible performance. But I think before that, pretty spotless. I think 3-0 the season before we won. The season before that was a 1-1 draw. The season before that, we beat them 2-1. I think Mount and Abraham scoring the goals. And then before that, they were in the championship. And I'm pretty sure we beat them quite comfortably a couple of seasons before they dropped down in the championship. And I think you might have to go back to maybe January 2011, if my memory serves me right, for the last time they beat us at Stamford Bridge.
You're right.
Would it be January?
No,
January?
it was December.
December 2012 or
2011.
2011. Yeah, I think
Yeah.
they probably still had like people like Darren Bent in the squad and players like that.
I can tell you the goal scorers right now if you want.
Darren Bent.
I can't. It doesn't go. My little thing doesn't go that far back. But yeah, I mean, but then you did miss out the 8-0 that we thrashed them 8-0.
8-0 in there.
Ramirez, Hazard, Oscar. Ramirez with 2 goals. Frank Lampard, Torres, David Luiz, Branislav Ivanovic as well. They did have Stephen Ireland in the team.
Brad Guzan in goal as well.
Yeah, they didn't have a good squad then, to be fair. Yeah. But yeah, I mean, this game's going to be difficult. I mean, look, Aston Villa are a team that have a really good manager. They seem to be able to. They've set themselves up really well for this season in terms of some of the signings that they brought in, and how well they've started the season as well. So it's going to be a difficult game. But what's your expectations? I mean, they're sitting 7th in the league. You know, we're 14th at the moment. It's tricky. I mean, if we lose, we are a lot closer to that bottom 3 than we were ahead of the next set of fixtures if we lose.
Yeah, I know this is a Chelsea podcast, but I think Aston Villa have been fantastic since Unai Emery's taken over. They've looked really, really good. They've got themselves in European Football Conference League, which is something I don't think you would have ever expected this time last year when they had Steven Gerrard as their manager. Yeah. Sure, they played on Thursday last night away in Poland. They lost 3-2. It gives me a bit of confidence or a bit of reassurance for the game on Sunday. Quite a few of their starters, I think, played a part in that game. I think Clément Lenglet, Lucas Digne, Tielemans, I think Watkins came off the bench. So you do hope maybe a bit of fatigue in the squad, maybe travelling back this morning or late last night. I'm not that confident. I just really hope that the fact that we're playing at home, I know we played Forest and we lost at home, but I really hope that the fact we're playing at home, we would have dropped 3 points against Forest, 2 points against Bournemouth. We'll kind of wake up the players a little. Shame that I think Caicedo hasn't trained this week either, so I'm not sure he'll play a part.
He's not on the injury list though. He's not on that recent injury list I shared, but I think it'd be a game too soon, I think, for him to start on Sunday.
Yeah, so you're probably looking at an Enzo Gallagher double pivot in midfield potentially. I do think it's a game I'd like to see a natural left back, whether that be most likely Chilwell this time rather than Colwell. But yeah, I think it's going to be a tough game, really tough game. I'm expecting both teams to go into that game thinking they can win. But I think Villa might maybe being kind of the underdogs, given the kind of history of the two teams, may favour the tie more with less pressure. And I don't think they've lost a game before yesterday since the opening day defeat against Newcastle. So I think their form in the Prem has been really, really good as well since then. But yeah, I'm expecting a really tough game. I don't really know what to make as a score prediction. But I think it's going to be a really tough one, and a bit like Bournemouth going into these games at the moment, just kind of not really expecting to pick up the 3 points as comfortably as we would have maybe under Tuchel or even during the Abramovich era.
Yeah, I think if I'm honest, I go into every game as a loss now. That's the mentality I go in with a loss on the cards. But I think I agree with you about Villa. I think they've started the season very well. I think they've lost 2. I think Liverpool, Newcastle, I think, with the 2 losses, but not obviously last night's defeat as well. But take that aside, the way they play football, I think it's more how they play football, how Unai Emery set them up to play counter-attacking football, constantly get the ball forwards. I think that will give our defense nightmares. I really do. I look at what you just said then. If we don't play Chilwell and we do play Levi Colwell, on that left side, it's going to be a long Sunday. It's going to be a long 90 minutes for Colwell. Big question marks around Mudryk for me. I do feel sorry for him a little bit, and the reason I feel sorry for him is because I feel like No, I don't. Let me take that back. Actually, I don't. I don't feel sorry for him. No, let me just retract what I'm about to say. I don't feel sorry for him because one, he's come into this team. He's had he's had a preseason. He should be, he's had a whole season. He's a half a season. He should be at a point where we can rely on him to actually. And he played well against Bournemouth. I'll give him that. He did play well, but we need to see a bit more. We're not seeing enough of what the value of what he is to what he's given us is so far apart from each other. So I think he gets a lot of criticism, even when he does do the right things, which is why I feel sorry for him. But we still need to see more from him because he's someone that we need to rely on. And me personally, I would put Sterling as that left-sided winger and I'd possibly start Madueke on the right. Again, very much with Cole Palmer in mind. I agree with you. I think he's a very good player, and I would put him in that 10. I think we've got to stick with the two, Gallagher, Enzo in midfield. Malagusto, I think, has played okay. I think he's a good replacement for Reece James. I think he could even, dare I say it, even take over Reece James in terms of holding down that permanent spot at right back. I think he hasn't really done anything wrong, in my opinion.
Links to Bayern Munich today, Reece James. I just read on Twitter.
Yeah, Madrid as well. I think
Madrid, Bayern Munich. So it could get to that stage if you just.
What's your thoughts though? Would you sell him? I mean, I think based on his injury record, I mean, we know on his day he's one of the best right backs in the world. He's up there past, for me, he's better than Trent. I'd put him now ahead of Carl Walker in terms of, what he can offer going forward. But on his day is the key words. On his day, he doesn't do it often enough. He's always injured.
Yeah, I think I saw a scary statistic, which was he hasn't started 7 games in a row for Chelsea since his first season or his second season or something like that. So injuries just kind of not allowing him to be that consistent player in our starting 11. And also we can't really, it's at that stage now where you've got to kind of trust these players who get injured. You've got to give them the kind of resources and the backing. But if it's just constant, and I think you called it about a year and a bit ago when you said he's never going to make it. He's never going to be that player we thought he'd be because of his injuries. I'm starting to kind of agree with you now. And I'm glad we've got Malagusta now because it's the first time in maybe a couple of seasons where we've got that right back that looks like he can offer the same amount offensively as defensively as Azpilicueta. We saw in the last few years, he just didn't have the legs anymore.
His legs went, yeah.
His legs were gone and we just didn't really we could trust him, especially as a right wing back. But yeah, I think this is something we should maybe come back to in the summer. What kind of situation around Reece James, especially that we've just given him the captain's armband.
You did say it was the wrong choice. You did. I remember you said it was.
I was very on the fence on it. I was kind of seeing the kind of rationale and the logic behind it, but I was also a bit. I think I called it. I said he'll be the captain on the pitch for maybe 1 game out of 5 or something like that. And I think we've had more captains this season than wins. We've had
probably got more captains than points.
Yeah, I think Enzo, Gallagher, Chilwell, Reece James. I'm pretty sure Silva would have.
Silva's had it at 1 point as well.
Silva would have had it. So that's 5 captains, 5 points, 2 wins. Wimbledon and Luton.
And also 5 goals scored, 5 goals conceded, I think, as well.
There you go. So it's about time now, like captains might be, we should maybe give it to a 6th player. So we
Fabulous 5.
Yeah. But now Reece James, player, I think, on his day, best right back in the world. You looked at those games against Milan last season, that performance against Juventus as well, the season before. But yeah, we've just got to kind of just see where it kind of how it plans out. But yeah, Malagusta's got to start for me on Sunday. I'd go with this is one I'm unsure. I want your opinion whether you go for a back 3 or a back 4.
Back 4.
Back 4. Chilwell, Colwill, Silva, and Gusto.
I don't know about Silva. I don't know if I can put Silva against that attack of Villa. I think, yeah, Silva. And I say that because I think you need the experience. I'm very reluctant to put 2 young defenders together. I'd like to keep Silva in there. I just worry about the legs on Silva. He looked knackered after Bournemouth. He got to 60 minutes into the game and his legs were finished, and I think he went down at 1 point as well. But yeah, sorry, Silva will probably be my centre back. And I think, again, going forward, you can't not choose Nicholas Jackson. You have to go with Jackson in goal. I do want to quickly, before we wrap up, I want to ask about Robert Sanchez, who played brilliantly against Bournemouth, but is it time to switch the goalkeeper? Is it time to give
Georgi Petrovic
a chance in goal now? I mean, have we signed him just to be the sub goalkeeper, or does he need to be tested to see which out of the two we want to class as our number one this season. I mean, we got to see it with Raya and Ramsdale at Arsenal. Is that something that maybe Poch needs to consider at Chelsea?
I think Sunday start Sanchez. There's no reason not to drop him after that performance at the Vitality Stadium last Sunday. But we've got a game Wednesday in the League Cup. I think that's the perfect game for Brighton on Wednesday night at Stamford Bridge, Carabao Cup, to see Petrovic make his first start for Chelsea. And this guy's meant to be very, very good. I think he was brought in to replace Matt Turner, who Arsenal signed. So we kind of signed him after a year of football in the MLS. But I think before then, I think he was playing in Europe. But I think like he's the type of player that maybe signing could maybe go under the radar and potentially be a very good player for us. I know we've got Slilina also out on loan, another player that we signed from the MLS. So I really hope that the goalkeeper situation maybe plans out. And there's also, I think, Kepa recently saying he wants to stay in Madrid. I think.
I don't blame him.
Yeah. He's probably seeing the shit show that's happening in West London and thinking he's happy in sunny Spain, and maybe can challenge Courtois next season when he comes back from his injury. But yeah, I think Petrovic will be a perfect opportunity Wednesday night, and depending on his performance, maybe we could have another Raya Ramsdale situation like we do at Chelsea.
Yeah. Interesting thoughts, interesting comments. If you agree, let me know what you think in the comments. If you think that we should stick with Robert Sanchez in goal, and also what would your lineup be as well for Sunday's game against Aston Villa? Should we be changing it in terms of Mudryk, or should we keep Mudryk in the team? Let me know your starting 11. And also as well, don't forget to subscribe to the channel. All the social accounts are at the bottom of the screen, but also there'll be a Linktree link in the description where you'll be able to go and follow all the socials and all the podcast episodes as well. But before we go, Theo, you haven't escaped it, a score prediction. You thought I forgot, I haven't. But what do you think the score prediction will be on Sunday?
I think we'll bounce back slightly, but when I say bounce back, is get a goal and get a draw. So I'm going to go with 1-1.
You're feeling lucky. I think we're going to lose, and I hate to be the negative one again, but I think we're going to lose. I think it'll be a difficult game for us. I think 2-0 to Villa. Just trying to be honest this season, but I think
carbon copy of last season's result.
Yeah, I just think. Again, I don't see where the goals are going to come from. I hope I'm wrong. I hope the home advantage gives us, the crowd being at home gives us the opportunity to see a different side to what we got to see against Bournemouth, and more so, especially against Forest. But 2-0 to Villa, unfortunately. I think one of the goals would be a very silly, sloppy defensive mistake that we could have probably avoided. Maybe two sloppy, silly mistakes, but 2-0 for me. But I think we've agreed on the lineup, which is always good, I think, as well. But again, in the comments, make sure you let us know your score predictions as well. So Theo's gone for 1-1, I think you said.
Yeah.
I've gone for 2-0 Aston Villa. So let us know what you think in the comments. And as Theo said at the start of the podcast episode, we are going to be more frequent. So traveling has obviously taken its toll on both of us. We're going to have a bit of a rest from traveling, so we'll be back next Friday, and obviously hopefully with some videos in between that on our YouTube channel, but if not, back next Friday for another episode. Thank you very much for listening and watching, and we'll be back soon.